This is the tragic story of Mark Neville, a man who loved his pet snakes and cared for them in his small basement apartment. He had 3 snakes, including a 9-foot Burmese python he adored. But what started as a regular night turned into a nightmare when Mark found the python had escaped from its cage. Mark Neville was a 28-year-old man with a deep fascination for reptiles, particularly snakes. He lived in a small basement apartment on Allison Court, where he had created an environment dedicated to caring for his exotic pets. Mark was not a casual reptile owner. He was an enthusiast who had carefully selected and raised 3 snakes, each with its own distinct characteristics. His collection included 2 smaller snakes, as well as Yasser, his prized 9-foot Burmese python. This python was more than just a pet for him. It represented his passion for the exotic, a creature he admired for its beauty, power, and distinct presence. Burmese pythons, like Yasser, are known for their striking, patterned skin and calm demeanor, making them a popular choice for experienced reptile owners. However, they can grow to immense sizes, sometimes exceeding 20 feet in length and weighing up to 200 pounds. These snakes are formidable predators, using their size and power to overcome large prey. In their early years, they spend much of their time in trees, but as they grow heavier, they mostly stay on the ground. They are also strong swimmers, capable of staying underwater for up to 30 minutes. Though not venomous, their method of killing by constriction is lethal, and unfortunately, this includes humans. Deaths from non-venomous snakes are rare, with only 1 or 2 reported per year worldwide. The majority of incidents involving captive snakes occur when handlers or small children unwittingly provoke them. No one knows for certain why Mark Neville's beloved Burmese python Yasser attacked him that night. Despite being a generally calm species, Burmese pythons, like any wild animal, can act unpredictably under certain circumstances. There are a few possible explanations that experts have suggested. One theory is that Yasser may have been startled by Mark's late-night arrival, possibly triggered by the sound of him stumbling through the apartment after a night of drinking. Another possibility is that the scent of the cat Mark had petted earlier that evening lingered on his skin or clothes, confusing the python and causing it to react as it would toward prey. Given Mark's experience with reptiles and strong bond he likely shared with Yasser, the attack remains a mystery. There was no history of aggression from the snake, and Mark had handled it numerous times without incident. On the evening of his tragic death, Mark Neville had spent the night out with friends, enjoying drinks and music at a small gathering. It was a typical night for him, filled with laughter, good company, and the usual sense of relaxation that came with unwinding after a long week. The hours flew by, and by the time he glanced at the clock, it was already 2 a.m. Realizing it was late, Mark decided to call it a night. He said his goodbyes, petted his friend's cat, a seemingly innocent gesture, and headed back to his basement apartment on Allison Court. When Mark stepped through the door of his apartment, he instantly felt something was wrong. The place was quiet, and as he began his usual routine of checking on his beloved pets, his heart sank. 2 of his snakes were secure in their enclosures, but the third, Yasser, was missing. The cage door was wide open. Mark panicked as he scanned the room, realizing that a snake the size of Yasser was difficult to miss, but the python had vanished into the apartment shadows. Mark's apartment, though small, had plenty of places where a large snake could hide. But with Yasser being as massive as he was, it seemed impossible that the python could have slipped out of sight so easily. Mark frantically searched through every corner of the room, calling out for Yasser, knowing that every second the snake was loose heightened the risk. Yet it was Yasser who found Mark first. In the darkness, Yasser had already been moving toward his owner, whether driven by the scent of the cat on Mark's skin or startled by his late-night entrance. The python's natural instincts kicked in. Before Mark could react, Yasser lashed out, sinking its fangs into Mark's legs in a powerful bite. Mark screamed in shock and pain as the snake clamped down, but it didn't end there. Yasser's massive body began to coil around Mark's legs, its constricting grip tightening with every breath Mark exhaled. Yasser's grip only grew tighter. The python wasn't just biting. This was a methodical constriction, a hunting tactic it had used countless times in the wild to subdue prey. Every time Mark exhaled, Yasser tightened its coils, making it increasingly difficult for him to breathe in. The python's powerful body began to cut off Mark's airflow, gradually suffocating him. Yasser's grip tightened as Mark struggled, its massive coils digging into his skin with relentless force. Despite Mark's attempts to pry the snake free, the situation was rapidly deteriorating. Mark's screams became weaker as the air escaped his lungs. He clawed at the python, managing to tear some of its skin, which was later found under his fingernails. As Yasser's coils reached Mark's neck, the snake gave a final crushing squeeze. Mark gasped for air, but his body couldn't respond. The python's constriction, a natural force, eventually overpowered him. When Mark finally stopped moving, Yasser realized its prey had died. Only then did the python start to loosen its grip. The horrifying ordeal had lasted mere minutes, though to Mark it must have felt like an eternity. Mark Neville's body was discovered just after noon on April 4, 1992. A neighbor concerned that they hadn't seen Mark all morning knocked on his door, but received no response. Growing uneasy, they contacted the authorities, who arrived at Mark's basement apartment on Allison Court. When the door was open, the silence inside told them something was wrong. The scene that arrived them was both heartbreaking and terrifying. Mark's body lay motionless on the floor, his limbs twisted into unnatural positions. His face was pale, and the signs of the struggle were obvious. Bite marks on his leg, torn skin beneath his fingernails, and visible asphyxiation. His hands remained tightened, as if he had been desperately trying to free himself in his last moments. Investigators quickly pieced together what had happened. The bite marks on Mark's legs were unmistakable. This was the work of a large snake. The empty cage confirmed their worst fears. Yasser, Mark's 9-foot Burmese python, had escaped and attacked him. However, Yasser was nowhere to be found in the apartment. The coroner, Dr. David Evans, who arrived at the scene, confirmed the telltale indicators of death by constriction. With over 1,500 cases under his belt, he had never encountered a situation quite like this one. The mix of deep bite wounds and the unmistakable pressure points left by the snake's powerful coils painted a tragic picture of Mark's final moments. But the snake Yasser had vanished. A thorough search of the apartment began immediately. Officers scoured every corner of the small space, looking for any signs of the python. They knew Yasser could be hiding somewhere, camouflaged in the dim light of the apartment, but it wasn't going to be easy to track down a snake of its size. Even though the apartment wasn't large, Yasser was a master of stealth and could hide in surprising places. The investigators knew they had to act quickly. After all, this was a 9-foot predator, capable of inflicting serious harm on anyone who came too close. Unable to locate the python, authorities made the decision to turn off the heat in the apartment. Burmese pythons are cold-blooded creatures, meaning they rely on external sources of warmth to regulate their body temperature. By shutting off the heat, they hoped to lure the snake out of hiding. They placed a single light bulb near the empty enclosure, its gentle warmth designed to coax Yasser out into the open. Now it was a waiting game. The search for Yasser lasted 24 hours, and tensions were high. Finally, the strategy proved successful. The following day, searchers discovered the python curled up beneath the light bulb, seeking warmth. Yasser, unaware of the devastation it had caused, was quietly resting near its cage, as it had most likely done countless times before. This discovery provided some relief to investigators, but the horror of what had occurred in that apartment lingered for a long time. Yasser, the snake that Mark had cherished and cared for, had unintentionally become the means of his death. The authorities carefully captured the python, but the incident left them with many unanswered questions. Why did Yasser escape in the first place? What caused the attack on Mark? Why had things gone so wrong that night? Dr. Evans's inquest into Mark's death was thorough, but even with all the evidence, no definitive answers emerged. Many theories were proposed, including the ones that Yasser was being defensive, or that the cat's scent on Mark had awakened its predatory instincts. Nobody could be certain. Thank you for watching. If you want to know more shocking animal attacks, simply click on the next video. Don't miss out. Hit the subscribe button for more terrifying stories. Until next time, stay safe